We're going to work on the jab first. Remember it again, the quality of your jab determines the direction which that fight takes. I'm a firm believer in the jab is the most supreme weapon in all combat. Well, it's a street fight. There's nothing quicker than a fast little flick with your front hand to somebody's eyes. If you think you're a good karate man, you think you're a good kicker, you think you're a good kickboxer, you got a deadly kick, I don't care what kick you use, folks, that kick can be neutralized with a good fast jab. And any punch in boxing, I don't care if it's a straight right cross, a good uppercut, or a good hook, or a good jab. Any punch in boxing can be neutralized with a good jab. So keep this in mind. Anytime you're going up against an opponent, you go, oh, God, coach, he's got a good right hand. Oh, he's got a deadly left hook. Neutralize it. How do I do that? With a jab. Keep that in mind. That's why I emphasize jab, jab, jab. Supreme punch in boxing. My point is, you can't jab, you can't fight. It's that simple. All right, now, watch the position. What we're going to work on today, I'm going to keep my weight a little bit back on the rear foot. Notice my toe on my front foot is pointed somewhat towards my opponent. Normally in boxing, when we jab, we want to point that toe straight towards the target. So in other words, I'm pointing that toe straight at my opponent's chin. But now watch, see the angle of my hip. In kickboxing, because when I jab this way, if my hip is pointed out this direction, if I start to kick behind the jab off this lead leg, I have to turn the hip first, which telegraphs my movement before I can execute the kick. So if I'm kickboxing, when I jab, I'll step in sideways. Notice that my foot is now pointed away from my opponent, but my hip is pointed straight towards my opponent. Therefore now, it's easier for me to throw a jab, follow through with a kick. So I would use that type of stance if I were following through with a kick. So I will switch sometimes from pointing the toe this way to turning the inboard a little bit. All right, gentlemen, let's position. Now please, let's not get into a wide stance. Everybody see the stance of mine is real wide? Watch me turn a little bit sideways. I see this a lot in karate. What happens here when you start to penetrate from a wide stance, you have a tendency to drag the rear leg. It acts as an anchor. Notice that rear leg is hooked to my hip. For that reason, I can't torque. Face me here for a second, Jim. Watch the two of us. If I'm trying to penetrate Jim, I want to set him up with a jab, get his attention upstairs with a lead hand. Notice I'm dragging the rear foot. Notice his leg's hooked to his hip. For me to hit him with the right hand, I've got to turn the hip. That's as far as I can turn that hip because the rear leg is back too far. See, I'm out of range. Now watch the difference. If I step in, I watch my rear foot comes in behind it. See the rear foot's up where it's supposed to be? Now I can turn the hip, therefore reaching the target. So watch it, whether you shadow fighting, hitting a double end bag, focus pads, or heavy bag. Don't drag that rear leg. That's a real bad habit a lot of boxers have, and especially karate people. Now, gentlemen, position again. Now from here, let's just warm the jab up. Every time you punch, I want you to attempt to step in behind the punch. Whether you're throwing a jab, or whether you're throwing the right cross, an uppercut, or a hook. You want to get your body weight into it. In other words, this gives your technique substance. All right? Without substance, there can't be any authority on the end of your technique. There's no bite on the end of that technique. All right? You want to convince your opponent you're really coming with total conviction. To get that total conviction, we need substance. We need body weight behind it, and you need to convince your opponent that you're moving with conviction. That means put your emotions into the technique. All right, position. I'll explain that conviction factor a little later. All right, hands up, gentlemen. Okay, just step in with a jab. Just step in, jab, jab again, back reposition. Now the idea on this jab, keep this in mind. Watch our stance. When I begin the jab, I want my fist covering my target. No one's going to hit me on the shoulder. Therefore, I don't want the fist in front of the shoulder. This is where I'm vulnerable, so I want that fist in front of my face. Now, normally what I do is I teach my people, if you can't touch your eyebrows with your thumbs, your hands are too low. Your hands are too far from your head. Does everybody see this? All right. Now, keep in mind, the heel of the hand here, this part of your forearm, is the toughest part of your arm. So I want that part of my arm always facing away from me. Not this way, open. Not this way. So a lot of karate guys fighting this way, a lot of Thai boxers this way. I like the tough part. I can always open or I can always turn back this way. I want these forearms up and down. Now some of you guys are going to have a tendency to do this. Your elbows are going to go out, flare out a little bit. Watch that when you shadow fight in the mirror. I'm going to show you a little bit about shadow fighting now. When your elbow goes out, what happens to your hand? Notice when the elbow goes out, your hand has a tendency to come down. So watch that. Keep these hands vertical, gentlemen. All right, when you're jabbing, the fist comes off the jaw. You finish the punch, make sure it's out straight, and it comes right back to the jaw. Okay, let's work on straightening the punch and pulling it right back to the jaw. Ready? Jab. Jab again. Back reposition. All right, ready? Jab. Jab again. Back reposition. Try to keep that arm as loose as possible when you're jabbing. Don't get physical in a fight. Don't get physical when you're jabbing. Watch my hand. You want to keep your hand as loose as possible, almost like I'm fanning the top of his head. Okay? Watch my hand. It's like a fanning sensation. That's how loose I want there. In other words, instead of fanning his head with a fanning motion, I just turn it over into a punch. So I get the snapping, the snap effect. Please keep this in mind. When you fire a jab, and about 90% of the people who fight don't do this correctly, these are outside punches. Your jab and your right cross, they must be straightened when you punch. Now watch, your power in a punch is on that last 3 or 4 inches. From here to there. Reason for that is your tricep comes into play here, and you get the full extension of your ankle right on the end of that punch. Let me show you something, what I'm talking about. Face me like this, Jim. A little bit more this angle. Watch the angle here. I'm going to throw a punch, but with the arm completely straight. Now watch what I'm talking about. You're not punching with the arm. Notice my arm is completely straight. It's almost locked out. But from here, because I'm punching with the ankle, watch the leverage I get on the end of the punch. All right. And that's without any arm motion whatsoever. Ankles, ankles. Watch this. I'm over 200 pounds. I could bounce all day long on one ankle. You can't do that on your arms. So you want to get your legs into the punch as much as possible. Did you all see what I did there at the end of that punch? So now keep this in mind. 2 points on the jab. 2 points you must remember when you're throwing the right cross. Offensively, your power's on the end of that punch. Also, a lot of coaches teach that you can twist right on the end of that punch, you get that tearing sensation. Straighten that punch out. Why? For power. When I say straighten it out, I did not say lock it. When I said straighten out, I did not say reach, nor did I say hyperextend. Straighten it without locking it. Straighten it without locking. Defensively, keep that punch straight, because on the end of that punch, you want it straight because you don't want your opponent to get in on you. Face me in a fighting sense, Jim. Now watch this carefully. If I'm too close to my opponent, I have smothered my own punches. That means I don't have enough daylight, enough room in here to execute a punch. I need the daylight. I need the space in order to execute the punches. When you start throwing bent arm punches, watch my punches now. They're going to be bent arm. Watch them. I'll throw about half speed so you can see what I'm talking about. See the arms are bent right on the end of those punches? Right on the end of those punches, the arms are bent. A lot of karate styles teach that nonsense. What I'm doing is crouching. If I'm throwing bent arm punches, I'm allowing my opponent to come in on me, to get closer to me. So in effect, I'm smothering my own punches. So please, when you're shadow fighting, hitting heavy bag, hitting focus pads, and especially when you're sparring, don't give me any of this bent arm punch stuff. These punches must be straight. All right, position again. All right, gentlemen, let's concentrate on that now. A little faster on the punch. I'm going to step in with a double jab this time. Keep in mind, each time you fire the punch, step in on it. Ready? Fire. 1, 2. Back reposition. Elbow straight up and down. Concentrate on the forearm. Weight back in the rear leg. Ready? Fire. Now notice right at the end of that jab, I still have the majority of my weight back in the rear leg. So if I wanted to throw the right hand, see if I want to throw this right hand, see the weight's back here, I can shift that weight and I've got some power.